That music is always so cool, and it's also very exciting because when you hear that music, you know that we are entering into a new episode of the Gracious Guest Show, the Gracious Guest Podcast, and I'm your host, Mike Creevy. In some ways, I am the gracious guest in your life right now because you have invited me into your digital space, however that's happening. If it's a podcast, it is a podcast. If it's a service like Stitcher or Podbean or Google or whatever it might be, there's all sorts of ways you can get this podcast through iTunes and other ways as well. And, you are either at work or on your way to work or home from work or home. Maybe you put the kids to sleep. Maybe you're just trying to grab a quick lunch where you're listening to something that's a little bit different. And however you're listening to this program, I am very grateful that you are and excited that you've tuned into, just sort of think about the wonderful, the magnificent, the incredible that is oftentimes hidden right before our very eyes. So that's what this program is all about. If you've never tuned in before, there are all sorts of cool things to check out if you haven't heard this program before. I recommend going back and looking at the feed. So I've had a couple of gaps for the last few months, more than ever before. We were in a pretty big transition sort of period, and, there was a move, there was job hunting, there was eventually job discovering, although that took a long time, longer than I wanted it to. But now I am working full-time at a Catholic high school in the greater Harrisburg area. I won't say which one just because I don't want those who aren't going to or affiliated with that high school to feel left out. I'm here for all of you. And at any rate, what this show is really about is exploring the marvelous, the wonderful, the thread really that runs through all of our lives. That if we learn how to see it, if we learn how to hear it, we learn how to sort of touch it and taste it, and just sort of be attuned to it, we can discover a whole new dimension of life that oftentimes goes ignored, or is far too often underestimated in terms of how powerful it can really be to shape our lives and to help give our lives meaning. So, we all do the workaday thing. We all go, whatever our life duties are, with family, with work, maybe it's with school, whatever the case may be. And, you just get used to that. And there's nothing wrong with those things. Those things are incredibly important, but those things are not our whole life. So what I try to do here on this show is to explore that mysterious je ne sais quoi in French, right? That I don't know what. Sometimes it's hard to put a sort of a word on it, but I do that through tangible things, So it's not really like a straight philosophy or theology podcast. Although I'm going to get into some of that here today a little bit, and I always do to some extent. But a lot of times it's book reviews, movie reviews. I'm actually, because of the craziness of the last few months, I sort of fell behind with my book reading plan. I was getting up to 40 to 50 or so books a year, like these past 3 years. This year, not nearly that many, but I'm picking up my pace a little bit now, now that I'm getting more of a routine down. But, my routine's also pretty crazy because I teach full-time, then I teach a night course on Wednesdays, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. So I don't know how many books I'll get read this year, but I'm hoping it's somewhere in between where I am now and what I hoped to be at least by the end of the calendar year. So I'm reading things like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. Reading a very interesting, if somewhat controversial, book on Göbekli Tepe, a very ancient historical or ancient archaeological site in Turkey, which is really changing a lot of the narrative that we were all taught as far as when civilizations rose and that kind of thing. Because this thing is much, much, much older than it should be. It predates Stonehenge by thousands of years. It predates things like the pyramids and the Sphinx and like all these early cultural things by many, many, many thousands of years, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding it. Now, the Ancient Aliens guys, of course, love to just jump to that conclusion. Oh, I know where it came from. Aliens. Well, look, I'd like to maybe keep open the possibility of something that cool, but I'm not going to go around saying that without any qualification, as so many of them do. But I'm reading a book that's really kind of cool that is very, very methodical, very, very scientific in its approach. But, I got to give him credit. He leaves the door open to some more fantastical possibilities, and that kind of thing doesn't automatically shut it. So that's kind of nice just to see. Because who knows? But anyways, some of those things are books I'm reading I'd like to kind of come back and do a commentary on pretty soon, and some movies and stuff. So I'm also going to be on a panel starting in the late fall, probably in November, I think. I should be on a pretty regular panel now that Disney Plus is launching, where we're going to look at all sorts of cool reviews of episodes of The Mandalorian and some other Star Wars specific stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm really excited. But today, I wanted to just spend a couple minutes exploring the title of this episode more, which is Transcendentals and the Trinity. Okay, that's my title here for today. And I'm just thinking here, I'm going to bring this up so I can kind of get some potential links for you. If let's see here, I'm going to pull this up. Yeah, just because I want to be able to kind of have this possibility here. I'll bookmark stuff. If you hear me clicking or typing, that's because I'm doing this sort of on the fly, and I want to be able to share some resources with you potentially as they come up. But really what this whole idea started as, and I started kind of putting some bullet points down for this episode a long time ago. It was just something I kind of wanted to do, but I wasn't sure how to approach it. So what happened was I was, funny enough, thinking about my time in the Army. And as any longtime listener to this program knows, or if you just know me in general, you know that I was in the Army for 8 years, 4 years of ROTC, and then 8 years after that in the reserves, active duty for my deployment when I deployed for a year, and then also in the National Guard, PA National Guard. So I went all over the place doing all sorts of different things in the Army. I had a really, sometimes challenging, as it always is, but overall a very, very wonderful experience in the Army. It was a tremendous honor to be part of the U.S. Army and to be part of that tradition. And in the Army, it's interesting. We were often encouraged, and I seem to remember this kind of came up more and more maybe halfway through my service. And it was one of those things, sometimes you'll get these buzzwords or these phrases, somebody comes up with it. It's probably a great bullet point on somebody's evaluation report that they come up with some sort of Army slogan or some kind of theme that will be taught to different troops in different circumstances and that kind of thing. So this phrase, this sort of marketing thing appeared from time to time that was called be, know, and do. Know, K-N-O-W. Be, know, do. And so we were really encouraged in many circumstances to develop and follow really the kind of three-part leadership paradigm of be, know, and do. The idea that you need to be a person of character. You need to be a leader. You need to be a soldier. You need to walk the walk, in that sense, or really kind of not just be faking it, not just be dishonest, disrespectful, all those kinds of things. There's an expectation that you're going to be a certain way. And along with that, there's an expectation that every soldier needs to know what they're doing. They need to know their job. They need to devote a certain amount of time, sometimes outside of official duty hours, to learn your job, learn your craft, learn what it takes to perform your duty, because eventually your life or someone else's life might be on the line because of that, because of your knowledge, and if you're competent and that sort of thing. So it's very serious, of course. And then lastly, do. So be, know, do was I think a really good kind of way of framing it. And what's funny is I don't know when this came to me, but not that long ago, I kind of think I discovered a connection between that Army adage and the Transcendentals. The Transcendentals, by the way, and this is off just Wikipedia. The Transcendentals, it's Latin Transcendentalia. They are here's the philosophical sort of definition here. The properties of being that correspond to three aspects of the human field of interest and are their ideals. Okay, and the way that Wikipedia has it explained here is science, or truth, the arts, beauty, and religion, goodness. And, you can debate that a little bit, but just to kind of simplify it here a little bit, what we're really talking about are the properties of being that correspond to these three aspects of our own life, our own experience: truth, goodness, and beauty. Well, be no do, right? I'm going to make an argument here for the importance of being beautiful, and then I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm not talking about, some sort of vein-fueled kind of attempt to be perfectly physically beautiful and full of yourself and all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about that, but we'll come back in a second to beautiful. To be beautiful, to know the truth, and to do the good. Right? So this is funny, because I don't know if the army realized this or not, but they didn't make be no do up. This comes from Christianity, okay? And it flows out of Judaism. That ultimately there's this idea that God, in his absolute transcendence, his absolute otherliness, the unapproachable light, God who is absolutely incomprehensible to our puny little human brain, just on the surface, we can never put God in a box and be like, oh, yep, here he is, I got him all figured out. So that the fullness of deity, the fullness of divinity, really residing in the Godhead, residing, really in God the Father, and this is where the Trinity comes in, that his full expression, the full knowledge of himself, his self-knowledge. Now, we all have self-knowledge, right? We can, unlike other animals, we can stand outside ourself and kind of look at the thing we are, look at our life in perspective, all that kind of stuff. We can rationally, in a sense, step out and look at our life almost like outside ourselves. We do it all the time. We do it every day, or we should, hopefully. But animals don't do that. Slugs don't do that. Trees don't do that. They just are, right? There's no rational reflection of the meaning of my dog's life. My dog just does doggy things, and he's great. And I love him. Petey's awesome. Sometimes he does good things. Sometimes he does bad things. But at the end of the day, he's just a dog, There's not a whole lot more to him than that, right? But I can be inhuman if I choose to be. I can, in this mysterious way, and you can too, I can behave in a certain way or do certain things that, in a sense, unravel my human nature and make me something else. But by the same token, on the other side of it, I can participate with a grander plan. I can participate with some mysterious process that God is trying to carry out in me that can actually raise me up above just a mere human nature, a natural human nature. So there's this very mysterious flexibility in here in human life that's unique to us, really. But what's so neat is in our own lives, right? We be, in a sense, we have this just objective fact of our existence. But then we know that at the same time we're aware of that reality. So there's this give and take a little bit. Like I am, and I know that I am. And I have an understanding of the thing that I am and how that can change, and and there's this kind of back and forth. And then I have this impulse to do something about that. Am I thinking and saying and doing things that make me more what I know I should be and can be by God's grace, or am I rejecting that and moving in a direction of my own free will that takes me into a lesser sort of life, a shadow life, So what's so interesting is we all kind of, I think if we're honest, we all kind of know that that's in our lives. There's this Trinitarian kind of reality every single day. Every single decision you make has something to do with where you are, but where you want to be, or where you should be. Being and becoming. I did an episode on a while back too. So it's this mysterious, I am something, and I know that, and I'm trying to be more of that and less of this, So I have to do certain things to kind of bring me back on track if I get off track or that kind of thing. So what's really kind of cool is when you look at, I'm going to bring it up here real quick. In the Latin root of this, it's pulchritudinous. There's your word of the day. The pulchritudinous is the beautiful, which is interesting because I need to kind of do a further etymology on this. It doesn't really sound like a super beautiful word to me. It sounds kind of strange. And it's tricky because, you'll see things like, here's the definition: beautiful, delighting the senses or exciting intellectual or emotional admiration. Yeah, okay. Beautiful, attractive, you'll see that. It's just kind of tricky to really get at what the heart of beauty really is. Or you have that old episode of The Twilight Zone with the people who, it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder episode, where, the woman has had this operation and they're warning her and they're concerned or trying to concern her with, this operation changed your face a lot, like you need to get ready for that. And then, of course, when they pull the bandages off, she's gorgeous, right? This kind of, 60s starlet kind of beauty, and they're all horrified, and she's horrified. And then you come to find out that everybody in this world who has been conveniently in the shadows this whole time, the doctors, everybody else who you haven't seen yet, when you see them, they have like these Planet of the Apes almost like twisted like monkey masks on. So to them, she's hideous, right? So it's an interesting episode, but is that really all we mean by beauty? Just really being physically attractive or lovely, that kind of thing. So there's a lot more to it, and really what we're looking at here is I think, and this is coming from a couple different places, is that in our tradition, when we're looking at this theologically a little bit, when we talk about beauty, there's a lot more going on to it. And this is from St. Thomas Aquinas. Oh yeah, what does he know? No, St. Thomas Aquinas, his definition of beauty had to do with that which pleases upon being seen. So that which being seen or being beheld is pleasant or pleases. So what's interesting is, you see why physical beauty and all of that attraction, that has something to do with that. But there's something deeper here, I think. There's more at the core of this that has to do with order, with design in a sense. Something is the way it's supposed to be, ultimately, would be what I would kind of say. That when you see something beautiful, it's because that makes sense, or that's just right. So a beautiful cookie, a beautiful chocolate chip cookie, you see it and you're like, yep, yeah, that looks good. And you touch it and it's like soft a little bit, a little crispy, and you chew it, and there's this deep dimension that in the physical realm, in the human physical realm, might touch on a lot of different senses. It might look beautiful, smell beautiful, taste beautiful. So that's all kind of wrapped up in there. But I would argue that this ultimately goes all the way up to God the Father himself. God the Father, like the perfect fullness of all that is right and just and holy and good and worthy of worship. The absolute peak of all reality is God the Father. And he just is. He is perfect being. He is perfect presence, perfect gift of love, outpouring of love. And what's amazing is he knows that. He's not like self-righteous or anything. He's not, his love of himself, his appreciation of himself and the reality that he is not prideful in his case, because it's all true. With us, we think we're so awesome, but there's always a detail that's missing or we're blowing something out of proportion. With him, it's not. He really is the bee's knees. I don't know if anyone's ever called God that before, but God the Father is ultimate, absolute, 100 million infinity % perfection and cannot ever be topped. So he knows that. And in that same way that we do, in a sense, he has this experience within his own existence of kind of having that objective, almost outside knowledge of that reality. The full reception of that perfect outpouring, that perfect gift of perfect being, perfect goodness, perfect love, is totally poured out infinitely by God the Father, just emanates out of him. But also within God, we come to find, there is that experience of awareness of that, reception of all of that beauty, that perfect infinite gift of self. There's also perfect reception of that, perfect appreciation of that, and perfect gift back. So the gift back itself then is returned and then re-returned and re-returned from all infinity. So in other words, this might sound philosophical, but at the end of the day, the Trinity really comes down to this. God has revealed to us that he is relationship. That in his very nature, before he's ever creator, before he's teacher, before he's a lot of those other things we associate with him, those images, before he is anything, and underneath everything else that he is just in his own inner life, perfect act of love. He exists, he is be the Father, right? And he gives all of that expression and knowledge and everything of himself, that full expression of the truth of who he is, then is the true, the good, the beautiful, they're all together, see here. He is ultimate beauty, he is ultimate existence. That beauty gives the truth of that out, and the truth of that is so perfect and so deep and so real that in God, it is a second person, not just an attribute. And that person, that second person who receives perfectly that infinite gift of all the beauty that God the Father is, loves that so much and is so blessed and beloved by his Father that he is the Son who then gives all that back to the Father in perfect expression of love, perfect expression of thanksgiving, perfect rejoicing, perfect praise. He returns all that to the Father. The Father receives that gladly and then gives it all back to the Son. And this sort of back and forth and perfect gift of love, always back and forth between them, is the very spirit or breath of God. It's the Holy Spirit. The action, in a way, this loving action of giving love and receiving love and giving love back and receiving love and giving that love back. That is so perfect and so infinite that it is a third person. So you have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They're not three gods. What Christians believe is that what it means to be God, the one God, the God who is love, not just who has love or shows love to people or has loving attributes. John says in his first letter of John in the New Testament, he says, God is love. Very clearly. If God is love, not just has love, not just is loving, right? If he is love himself, if he in his inner nature, what he is love, and it's real love and infinite perfect love, there has to be within him somehow the act of giving love, receiving love, and mirroring that love back in return. The exchange of love, relationship, has to be in God. It's logical when you think about it. And so, long story short, when we talk about the transcendentals, truth, goodness, beauty, and there's different ways you'll see people express this. I always really like to think of it as that beauty, the beautiful. Beauty is this ultimate perfect order that resides in God the Father, and he communicates the truth of that, and the truth of that is so real and so perfect that it is truth itself who is his Son. What does Jesus say to at the Last Supper in John's Gospel? He says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus says that he personally is truth itself. That's an insane thing to say if it's not true. No good teacher says something like that. I am the truth. Can you imagine what would happen if I said that to my students? I would hope that I'd be fired that day, okay? Okay, everyone, listen to me, for I am the truth. That's not how, just a nice, religious teacher, a nice, guru, that's not how they talk unless they're out of their mind. So Jesus says he is the truth. He identifies himself with being the very person who is the truth. And then ultimately that truth who gives in himself back to the Father, the true who gives back to beauty, that exchange back and forth, that action, that doing, be and then know and do, is all right there in the Holy Trinity. And the Holy Spirit is the life, the action, the dynamic, explosive love of God the Father, the exchange of their love from all eternity and for all eternity. So, how about them apples? Be, know, and do. An Army 3-part leadership paradigm that just so happens to draw my mind all the way back up to the most central mystery of all, the Holy Trinity. So I hope you got something out of that today. It's a little more theological, maybe explicitly theological than most of my episodes are, but hopefully you got something out of it. It's just something to think about. I'd love your feedback. If you want to email me, you can always do that either through the website over at thegraciousguest.org, or you can email me directly at thegraciousguest@gmail.com. The podcast is over there if you want to get subscribed to it. Make sure you spread the word to your friends. You can go back and look on the feed. Like I said, there's all sorts of different topics. Some shows are 10 minutes long. Some shows are closer to a half hour. It just kind of depends. This is one of the longer ones. And book reviews, movie reviews, life, things to think about. Just all sorts of cool stuff, I think, on here that I love to do. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Gracious Guest Podcast. And until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.